Hello and welcome to Complementary Colors. I'm joined here today in person by Kara Root.
Hi.
Ashley Killian.
Hey, y'all.
And then virtually by our special guest, Casey Key.
Hi, hello.
So Casey, where in the world are you today?
I'm in Hallbrook, Arizona, which is right outside the Petrified Forest.
I am so jealous. Arizona is one of my favorite places.
I mean, just real quick, where in the world is Carmen? Okay.
Yes, just put Casey in there and sing it again and
Iconic.
it's perfect. All right. Well, are we ready to jump into the topic of today?
Please.
Okay.
Do it.
So, big question, overarching question that we're going to answer today. Okay? I'm putting a big charge on us. How can we meet better? Just meetings in general. I think that the goal in general for meetings is just to combat digital exhaustion. What do you think?
When we're talking about meetings in 2024, yes.
Meetings,
Yeah.
yeah. To be clear, meetings currently done in 2024.
Yeah.
So I wanted to hit you guys first with a couple stats so that we can set the tone for everything else that we'll talk about today. So according to Microsoft.com, because I don't know about you, listener, but we use Microsoft from day to day on Teams, email, all of this. Microsoft Suite is our tool. So Microsoft.com has said since 2020, our average day has increased 13%. So that equates to about 45 minutes, just in general or all across the board.
Is that a U.S. stat or is that like a global stat?
That's a global stat.
Okay.
And that's a work day, you're saying.
It's a work
Yeah.
day.
Mhm.
Okay.
So our work days have gone from 8 hours to 8 hours and 45 minutes on average.
I would agree.
Yep.
That is accurate from my own personal experience.
Mhm.
But in addition to that, sadly, our weekends have come in with an increase of an additional 14%.
Adding to work.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. It's because
So
of
now we're at
Teams.
9 hours and 15 minutes. See, you're on.
Ooh.
So then let's add in the biggest increase, which is after work hours.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a percentage of where that increased to?
30%.
Oh, you're so close.
I
It's
was gonna say
28%.
25. Oh,
28%.
Split the difference.
Yeah, so that's like an average of 10-hour day
Yeah.
because we're so much more hyper connected with all these digital tools. So I thought that was a really interesting stats to lay some groundwork. But in addition to that, I'm just going to throw some crazy ones at you. You ready for
Okay.
this? Microsoft Teams in particular, what do you think the usage increased by? Casey, you go first.
Are we saying like percentage still?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Microsoft Teams in general.
Since COVID, probably, I would say 35%.
Nope. Try again.
300%.
Kara's like getting close here. It's
God.
252%. I know,
Damn.
right? Oh my God. Okay. So then the number of
That's
weekly
terrifying.
meetings hosted in Teams. Who wants to tell you that one?
Or percentage-wise?
Yep.
Go, Ashley.
500%.
A lot. Oh my God. It feels like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That actually one is only 153%.
Okay.
Only 153%.
Actually, only 150.
But I thought it was interesting because chats only increased 32%. So
I believe that.
we were good at chatting before, just not good at meeting. Or I think we were better actually at meeting. Side note. So with that laying the groundwork, I wanted to ask you guys a couple questions. In case we're going to start with you. What are some of the things that stress you out about meetings?
Poor meeting organization.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Kara, what about you?
Audio not working or a new platform upgrade right when you start. Do you notice, by the way,
I just looked at you like, yeah.
we're all starting with a digital platform because that is how much we don't meet in person anymore.
Mhm.
We're all referencing digital.
Yep.
What
That's a
about
good
you?
point. Yeah, just setting up in a meeting in general and getting that technology to cooperate is a
Stress point.
stressor. And I will say when I was fully remote back in Georgia, the bad weather was a stressor sometimes.
Oh, hey.
The lightning storms, like, is the power going to go out? So,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a fresh perspective.
yeah, something unique.
Okay, so playing off of that, what then absolutely drives you nuts?
Poor recording, like meeting minute taking.
Oh, yes, meeting minutes.
Just mostly when it comes to action items and approvals of things, and then secondary, long-winded intros.
Oh,
You know what? We see your name. We see your name on the screen. I don't think we need to talk about it.
Self-explanatory.
We know who you are. Casey, what about you?
I definitely feel like it's the thing that drives me absolutely up a wall is screen share not going well, or
share.
people being muted who are trying to talk, or people who are not muted who should not be talking, or they're taking a conversation in their office in the background, and we're like, we can all hear you.
Oh, I see
stop.
Ashley giggling over there. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I think the delay in audio drives me nuts because people will wait and then everybody chimes in at once. And it's this awkward situation where it's like, okay, now who talks when? And then people start talking at the same time and then they don't. So it's just that technology component again.
Can I just say that could probably be solved really quickly if everyone had their video on, because the body language is the solver, right?
Mm-hmm.
You lean in and you do like the eyebrow flare, like, go ahead. That's like your turn to talk.
Can I see your eyebrow flare for anyone watching?
No, now I'm just like the creepy guy in a van. Like,
No, you have to watch.
Not at all.
So playing off of that eyebrow flare, I wanted to ask you kind of a silly question. But Kara, I would love you to define what a meeting is.
Is that a silly question or is it just a silly answer?
Well, it depends.
Gathering of information for action.
Oh, God, because you're on fire today. Channeling information was by this definition. And then it's one of the places that you actually have the ability to communicate clearly, like clear communication. So very important, I think, in teams.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the intent.
Right.
Clear.
Great segment.
Intent being the operative word.
Okay. So did you guys know that it takes about 23 minutes for your brain to recover from being distracted? Meetings aside, but just a distraction. So if you're in a meeting and you get a chat and you're like, oh shit, that's part of a deadline, not even associated with the meeting I'm on, but now I'm distracted, 23 minutes to re-immerse yourself.
Really? Are we sure that's for males and females? Did I just lose half our audience?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I know
For
women.
23 minutes anyway.
Women in general are stereotyped for sure to be the better multitaskers, but in reality, I think it was just like a general study, men and women, that 23 minutes was the average. So there was people that it was more, and of course people that were less. But I thought that was really interesting, so that when we're actually in these meetings where we're supposed to have clear and concise communication channels, we are peppering ourselves with distractions. So the impact of the meetings, I would say in 2024, and Casey, I don't know if you agree with me, have come down.
I think they've become less effective.
Yeah, how so?
Like, because we got really lazy in COVID, just like everything's a meeting. Then it's like we weren't as diligent with our meetings. So yeah, we don't have as many like as we did in 2020, but it's definitely, they're not as good.
Yeah.
The stuff does not get decided as quickly. There is not as good note taking because people just got used to it.
That's a really good point. Does anyone remember what meetings were like before 2020? Kara,
Yes.
remind me.
Refresh
Oh my
my memory.
gosh. No, I remember a whole design team showing up and sitting in Flex, which in our office is like in the center of our office. It's big tables. And we would all crowd around, a set of plans, and we would actually workshop and do stuff together. And someone would say something and another, discipline would be like, that's not going to work. And we would actually get shit done instead of what we do now is we just do this really quick, like check in on what you have done that is not beneficial for anyone else to know about. Like that's not even
100%.
beneficial. So it went from in-person action to let's just all have a quick update.
Yeah. What about you, Ashley? Do you remember? And I know you had been virtual.
Yeah, I
But
started
before you
virtual
went
in
to
2018.
virtual-
But yeah, before that, it was a lot more engaging because everybody's kind of focused on the same thing. And once we all went digital, distraction so easy. You don't know if people are paying attention or not, or multitasking on the side.
Right.
I mean, I think we've all been guilty of that at one point or another.
I think
but-
I've heard every one of us, and me probably the biggest culprit. I'm sorry, can you repeat that? When someone asks you something,
Calls
you
you out.
realize like you were doing 4 other things.
Casey, I see you're giggling. Do you remember a 2020,
Yeah, I've done that.
pre-2020 experience? I know that was, oh my gosh. When did you hire with us? 18?
2018.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
At least I got that right.
I definitely there was way more pressure on meetings. It was like you come ready, you come prepared to just dive in. You have your receipts with you of like, hey, I've done this work, rather than like, yeah, I'll shoot that to you in an email and follow up with you on that because they're responding to something else or doing something. Like we got into such an effective habit to cope with 2020. Not
Yeah.
to like blame that entirely, but it was an effective habit of like being able to listen and still get things done because it was still a busy time, even if like we were all separated.
And we were
I think
craving that
we got-
connection.
exactly. So we almost got used to listening to meetings like a podcast that
That's
we
a
didn't
good
have
way
to
put it.
necessarily like participate in
I like it.
until we did. And
Yeah.
we're like, oh shoot, I don't remember how to do this.
Kara, I also remember because we always have these really great military conferences that usually are full day to full 3-day long charrettes where we talk about every single discipline down to the scope of work and every little detail in between. So everybody is very clear on the intent to get from one submittal to the next submittal. And I remember being so excited one day that I could call in from my desk when everybody else was in our large conference room because us interior designers only have that small scope sometimes. And I'm like, hey, I really need to focus on this one thing right now. Can I call in at my time or come down there? And I just thought, oh, this is such a benefit of my day. Like it was a privilege for me to be able to call in and just listen because I was not paying attention until I needed to.
And it becomes, I'm about to call out some deep, dark secrets here, but
You can reveal them here.
It
It's safe.
becomes painfully obvious to me when a little portion of what I do is sustainability consulting. And so when you're going through most third-party sustainability structures, they start with a credit that's called integrative process. And the purpose of this is to say that at the beginning of every project, everybody is integratively in a design charrette, in a active, like coming up against when, the dirty secret is like, we might show meeting minutes of that, but what Melissa just said is more accurate. Like whether you're at your desk calling in or you're in the room, the breakdown of an attention span for a human to be like fully attentive
8 hours straight
for 3 days.
One break.
Right. It doesn't really compute with the true attention span we have.
I completely agree. And I think 2018, 19, we were seeing a lot more WebEx. Wasn't that our? Yeah.
Yep.
WebEx.
I hated
And
WebEx.
call-ins.
I know.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of call-ins rather than video conferencing.
Right. It was just a call-in
yeah.
number.
Yep.
That
Yeah.
was
So
it.
you're not seeing faces in that case.
Yeah. So I would say that our roaring 20s of the new century we're in gave us a whole new set of tools, right? So when pre-COVID, we always assumed that a meeting was in person, right? You were planning on driving, you were planning on preparing, printing, all the stuff you needed to have a meeting and a submittal even, like a submittal review. But now we have a choice. We can have it in person, we can have it all virtual, and then we can have our lovely hybrid. So now it's like, how do you figure out which one is the best option? Like, do you have any advice for the crowd of what you would, how would you filter that out?
Man, well, I would say new clients always in person.
Yeah, I like that.
I would say that, if you were in a process with people you've worked with together for years, you know what to expect. Like those facial cues aren't as important when you're learning how someone responds for the first
Body
time.
language is so important.
You do. You need all of those cues. And I think the more you work together, you could pick it up in tone, and the little inflections like that I can see of Casey's face as example still work if you've
And we
been
know
together.
her. Yeah, exactly.
That's a really great point, because there was a great study done that, like, how do you know when to have it virtual or not? And you're like, well, how well do you know the people? And I just laughed. I was like, well, of course our meetings are good virtual because we all know each other so well. Like, I know Casey's little it was smirk look.
My thinking face.
Yeah, thinking face. You guys know my laughs. We know Kara's poker face. We know Ashley's face. It's very, very clear where we're at emotionally, even when we're virtual. That being said, though, that is with cameras on.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Okay. So this new study that I was reading diligently last week was really interesting, because it was talking about that even if it's in person, virtual, or hybrid, there was 3 categories of meetings, 3 buckets where you could put these meetings in. And the first one was a cadence meeting. And that one I feel like we're peppered with. And that is the keep work going meeting. That's the
Check-ins.
Yeah, the military, that's our CA world of projects and construction. So every week we have a meeting to talk about where we're at, where we need to be, how far behind we are, or maybe how far ahead we are, knock on wood.
Funny.
Just laugh. The other bucket was catalyst meeting. And this was the one that I think that we all actually love and want to attend. Those are the brainstorm meetings. Those are the ones that we're solving the problem. We're actively doing something. It is
You're time well spent.
the yang to the yang.
I needed to be there.
Yes, exactly. You walk away, you're like, I've got this. And then the last bucket is the context meeting. So that's the meeting that gives kind of an understanding of what's going on. So those might be the kickoff meetings. Hey, here's the scope of work. Here's the point of contact, but all of that, could that have been in an email? Could that have been in a Teams? Maybe.
Yeah.
Right. Depends on how well you know them, right? But if you don't know the client, exactly.
Working meeting minutes. Yeah.
So that's where, Kara, where you said how well do you know them? That really plays a point into that context. If I know you, I don't need a kickoff meeting. I can send you an email. New client, I'd love to see you face to face to talk about how I'll be your point of contact, and this is your team and we're here for you. So yeah, it really has to do with the emotional intelligence part of the decision making. So Casey, I'm going to ask you this question first. So what would you wish to see more of in a meeting to be successful?
I think, again, that goes back to my comment about poor organization and a solid, hey, here's what we're going to be addressing in the meeting. Follow up with treat it like an essay. We were all taught good essay structure in school was you have a statement, you expand upon that statement, and then you reiterate that statement.
I love that you just,
why is that
school essay? I mean, spot on.
Well, that's what it should be. It's we're discussing a topic. So let's establish what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Go off on all our tangents, but then button it back up and say, thank you so much. Everything you said in this meeting will be recorded, whether that's you hit record on the meeting or you are taking notes, because we love when clients forget that they said things or oh, I
that
never
never
said
happens.
that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No,
Literally. No
clients
pun
have
intended.
never done that. So organization is key. It's a how do we be effective communicators to make effective meetings?
So are you the one that will send out the meeting agenda before the meeting?
I like to address the meeting agenda in the first thing. When I'm very good, I would love to be able to have the wherewithal to send out a meeting agenda ahead of time. But even just saying, hey, here's the 5 things we're hitting as we're starting the conversation can be enough.
Here's our goal.
Yeah.
Okay, Ashley, what would you want to see to make a meeting work better for you?
Well, I literally had those 2 points. Just a clear defined talking points, and having that lined out. And then clarity on, it's literally the things I was thinking, clarity on who is
Great minds
following
think
up.
alike, Ashley.
Yeah. I'm with you. So yeah, just that follow-up is important because things get said and decisions get made, and it's well, did that, if that wasn't recorded or sent out after the fact, you have no record of it.
So why do you say the follow-up so important?
Just so you have that CYA.
Cover your ass.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing when I'm actually leaving the meeting.
Yep.
Like I have a charge, I have an action, and I know who I'm going to give it to.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the people attending, likewise, they know what their things they need to do next and give you. So it just delineates, everything that you went over in the meeting.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, Kara, what about you?
The unspoken rule, I'm going to say it and you're going to be like, yeah,
Maybe.
where silence is agreeance.
Yes.
I hate that.
I don't know what
Okay.
you're talking about.
the worst.
So what I'm saying is if we just could remove that silence is agreeance and that people would address in the meeting openly things that they do not understand or things that they do not have 100% clarity on, which when you're in a design process, everyone should have at least one thing. Because I am very sick of us only arriving to things when they are like big problems, instead of if it was just clarified that, there was like 3 different interpretations of what was said.
Yeah.
Instead of like, I kind of think I understand what that was. And so I'm just going to be quiet because there's 25 people on this meeting.
Especially
like,
with our creative brains, right?
Yeah, like be open enough to even reframe. Like at least, we're all here anyway, like reframe what you heard at least, because then it gives the opportunity for someone to be like, whoa, that is not what I understood.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
That's the thing is like, I think the effort is getting us all there. And so we might as well use that time to be like extremely open and, extremely like verbose about the content, unless instead, if it was just like, let's say 3 people out of 25 people talking, that means that only 3 people should have been on that meeting. And the other 25 could have read the agenda and meeting minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry.
100%.
I'm like soapbox.
No, I totally agree. And I think that's a really good tool too, is that, and I know Casey, you do a really good job of almost reframing what they said in a question to validate what they said. Like you give me the surprise face, but you're really,
I didn't
really, really
realize
good at it.
You do that. So what I'm hearing is, you say that a lot.
Yes.
Normally I'm doing that just being sure, like, was I actually listening?
But it's helpful.
And understanding.
That is a goal. You're
Sure.
still getting clarity for yourself. Whether you're bringing clarity to additional people in the meeting, which is always a benefit, you know that you're leaving there with a clear direction. And that is so important. So I think that actually feeds really good energy into the next thing I was going to talk about. So there was someone on a podcast, and I'll put all of these show notes in for you guys to be able to expand on what we're talking about. But there was a lady that was talking about how you need 2 energies in a meeting to actually make it successful. And she was relating it to the yin and the yang. Like you need yin and yang to balance out and make a successful meeting. So the 2 opposing energies, one being the calm, cool, collected person that has everything under control and is totally not nervous, has everything agended out, bullet pointed, all organized, right? And then there's the yang, that is that production energy. And that is the go get 'em, let's be on point. I'm going to take you and be responsible for what you're going to do. And we're going to leave with action points. There's going to be meeting minutes and people are going to know who and when that they need to follow up. Does that sound like a good meeting?
Absolutely.
Or it's like, the calm captain and like the disturber,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Dun, dun, dun.
But how many times, honest moment, how many times have you gotten on a meeting with giving yourself maybe 5 minutes of preparation time because everything's so virtual?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we all have.
It's
All the time.
Oh God. Right, Casey? It's like ridiculous. I'm like, okay, I can do this. I have the drawings. I have an idea of what I need to say. I can get somewhere.
Let's just wing it.
Let's just wing it. How many times do you say that in your head?
No, that's maybe if we had like 50% less of these,
Ding, ding, ding,
Ding, ding,
ding.
ding.
50% less would be so amazing, wouldn't it? So what I have found... oh, sorry, what? Go for it, Casey.
Sorry, Melissa, didn't mean to talk over you, but
Jeez.
when I remember when you were trying to advocate for a no meeting day for our office, it was one of those like,
we need this so desperately for our own sanity, but also there was such pushback because people were like, I don't know, I don't remember what that's like. Almost like there, you have those needy clients that expect you to talk to them 3 times a week via meeting. And I was right there with you. Like, we need this idea of being able to like set aside a whole day so that we can do our prep, that we can like, if we only have 5 minutes before a meeting on the next day, that's fine because we did 3 hours of prep on my no meeting day.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's a
Casey,
huge part of like being able to compartmentalize.
that is like hitting the nail on the head too. Like you've said it 100 times correctly. It's how to combat that too many meeting syndrome. Like there's just too much going on, is actually ask them if you need to be there. Do I need to actually be in this meeting? Or do you got it? And by got it, are you going to delegate what I need to do? Like, can I trust you to listen, to actually participate in that meeting, to then be able to digest what I need to do as an individual? That's actually the hardest question, because so many people are so multitasking mind, according to the stats, that can I really trust you to let me know what I actually need to do if I don't participate? And then also have that meeting free day. Oh my gosh,
Boundaries.
it was like what was staggering 72% production increase if you decreased meetings to only 4 days a week. Take one day out and you got 72% increase in productivity. That is insane.
It's amazing.
It definitely says block out the time and guard it with your life. Period. End. And then there's also this thing that's, I think, really real. And I don't know do you know anybody that has meeting addiction?
No.
No, not at all.
No one in our lives is anything like that.
It's like the FOMO. Like, I don't want to not go for fear of missing out, or I can't trust somebody to take accurate
But
minutes.
it feeds the culture because, I'll be that person for the sake of this conversation. Is I have shown up to a meeting where I'm like, I'm going to fly on the wall just so in case I'm needed, I'm there. But I'm going to do like these 8 other things while I listen in. But at least I'm like there if needed. But am I really there?
Are you really needed?
It's convenient. I think this whole platform has made it so convenient for everybody that we're just littered with them.
Yeah. And then in our world, how do you take notes of how much time you've worked on something? If you're literally multitasking on one job while listening to another, I'm sorry, how do I fill out my timesheet again?
Yeah.
That's when Outlook on my calendar has like the projects with a dash. I'm like, I worked on these 3 things in this half hour.
So, ladies, final thoughts. If you could choose a day or 2 to not have meetings, would you do it?
In a heartbeat.
Yeah.
It's just like, duh. Or would you feel like you're not doing your job?
Because
I got the vibe, Karen.
yeah, well, the lead balloon of no meetings, like with me, I mean, like
I think it depends on your role too.
Melissa had brought that to our attention, and I struggled with saying no.
Yeah. It's hard.
It's hard to say no to clients when you're like looking and you're like, well, I could just work around it. And that's what happens.
You agree to validating that you actually need to be there.
Yeah, you're right. And usually
so in
I
a way,
don't.
you are filtering though. But I know a lot of times you'll have Mallory take meetings.
Right.
I'm talking like military, like we're just checking up on things.
Right.
Those kind of meetings where you're like, I've got someone that has my back.
Right.
I'm going to do something else.
Right.
Or I'm going to be on the meeting and I'm going to do something that I need to get done because it's due in an hour. And you're talking to me right now, right? Yeah, exactly. So the last stat that I'm going to give you guys is a really cool framework that I learned about. And it was the 40-20-40 rule. So if you have a meeting and you're preparing for this meeting, you should put 40% of your time in the preparation for that meeting, only 20% of your time in the meeting, and then 40% after the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
I read that and I was like, I'm missing the last 40.
Right. The
capture,
the capture, the actions, the dissemination.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important. I don't know how many times, Ashley, we talk about it. We're like, man,
Yes.
I wish I documented that. If I would have just taken that 40% of time and followed up with meeting minutes or action items. And Casey, I know that there's so many clients that we work with too, like the school district. There's so many projects going on and they're all going on at the same time and they're very similar. And our brains, we're human, right? We can only handle so much. So how do you deal with the 40% after? Do you have any tips?
Like the 40% after meetings to
what
like
do you do to follow up?
Honestly, and this might be the homeschooler in me, I like to like do it right away. Like if there's an action, I didn't do homework when I was a kid because I would just do it after I learned the lesson. And so like for meetings, I'm like, if there's an immediate action item, if I put it off, it's gone. Like it's out of my brain. And I can put it off as long as I schedule it. So if I like put it on my calendar or like make a note for myself to follow up with an email to do this, that's fine. But if there's an immediate action after the meeting to help capture all of those like lost little thoughts, that's the only thing that helps me from just going into Never Never Land.
Yeah, absolutely. Kara, do you have any tips for the audience?
I think, and this could just be that I need to change the way I start to take notes. I usually take notes like I write them because it becomes a sketch of an idea.
Yeah,
it becomes a quick note. And those rarely make it out of my sketchbook to be given to other people to all share together. So I think if my 40% was actually spent, because I'll use that and I'll like highlight through them later as my own actions, but I'm not sharing and then validating actions. So my 40% at the end doesn't exist.
Yeah, neither does mine. So I'm on your team. Ashley, what about you?
I think it's a good idea to schedule that. Kind of make after you have a meeting, excuse me, maybe just make a little, 15-minute block even.
Yeah. And
just to recap all that.
It's like pre-COVID when we scheduled the drive to and the drive back.
Mm-hmm.
Can we have that time back for the prep and the after? Like we should schedule these things.
Great idea.
So I agree with that 100%. Well, I hope you guys learned something about how to improve your meetings today.
Or you felt not so alone.
Oh, we're not alone. Crying a little bit with us on the side. But we'd love to hear your input. And if you have any other suggestions on how we can make our 40-20-40 better, we would love to hear from you. But until next time, I hope you're enjoying your day.
Bye.
Bye.
Complementary Colors is a production of MCG Explore Design, an architecture and interior design firm located in beautiful Anchorage, Alaska. If you'd like to hear more future episodes, be sure to subscribe to Complementary Colors wherever you find podcasts.